Hi, everyone. It's Brad Weber again, host for the 2022 annual meeting here in Indianapolis. And I had the privilege of being with Ashley Kilgore, Communications Manager for Informs. And you know what's so much fun about this? Is when I started working with Informs last year for Anaheim, Ashley was the very first person I met. And I got interviewed by you, actually. So I love the fact that I get to turn the tables and ask you some questions. We're going to talk a lot about Resoundingly Human, your podcast. So before we jump in on that, how's it been for you here at the annual meeting?
It's been really fun. So last year for Anaheim, like you said, we met ahead of time and did some video recordings, actually a series of videos. We're doing obviously the same thing here, but I did not go to Anaheim. I was part of the crew that stayed behind in Maryland and took care of all the virtual components. So I'm so happy to be back. It just, during the pandemic, I became a hugger. So I'm doing a lot of hugging of people that I've met online, that I'm finally meeting in person. We're doing a lot of fun stuff here, like I said, with video. We're doing some live podcasts. It's great to attend all the events and just, see the people. Everyone's smiling. I'm smiling.
Wow, over 6,000 people.
I know.
And you know what's interesting too, and there's always a lot of first-time attendees, but we have a lot of first-time attendees here, close to 2,000.
Yeah.
So
I think it's 1/3 of the total attendance.
Exactly. Yeah. So because there are so many new people here this time, let's go ahead and talk a bit more about the podcast and what they could experience with it, what they should get out of it, that type of thing.
100%. So among my duties, I host the Resoundingly Human podcast with Informs. We launched back in, 2018, so it's been growing over the years. I think this past year we reached a total of over 60,000 downloads, which was a fun milestone.
Wow.
It's a podcast that breaks down really complex topics into really digestible, brief little episodes. We talk to members, we talk about their work, we talk about them, what gets them excited about what they're doing. We cover a wide range of topics, and that's because our members do such an incredible range of work, both academic and industry focused work, and I love it. I get to talk to all kinds of members all over the world. I've done podcasts with people in Nigeria and the UK. I'm getting ready to do one with someone in South Africa. I'm still not really great at the time zones. I always have to double check before I schedule an interview.
So you end up 3 a.m. when you're sitting there.
But no, it's great, and it's really been great to see over the years how it went from being something that not a lot of people knew about to now people reach out and want to be on it, and they get excited to be on it, and that makes me feel really, really, really good. And especially here, seeing people that I haven't met but have heard it and tell me how much they like it and would like to be on it. So it's super, super fun.
Wow. So you've really, you've talked to so many people around the world. And if you don't answer this, it's okay, but I know you must have one or two that's really stuck out to you, or really the top of your list of wow, that was amazing. Can you share that?
Oh gosh, so I love every single member that I talk to and each of their episodes, but I have to share this summer, I had probably one of the cooler experiences in my career, other than this very moment here with you, Brad. I love podcasts, and I'm a cliche. I like true crime. I really horrible stuff sometimes, and I love to listen to them when I'm run. So I'm listening to one this summer called Reunion Shark Attacks in Paradise. It is in no way, shape, or form related to the podcast that I do in real life. And I'm running along, and I hear the gentleman hosting the podcast mention one of our journals, and he calls it I think it was this super cool journal, Management Science, which is one of our biggest journals. And I swear to God, I had a conniption fit in the middle of the running trail. I started immediately texting all of my coworkers and then kept listening. And as I'm listening to this podcast, it was about shark attacks at a small French island in the middle of the tropical setting, but it really broke down sort of solving the problem. And throughout the podcast there's this theme of data and the lack of data and decision making when there is no data, or when the data is wrong, or when people don't want to listen to the data. And I thought, what the heck? I'm going to reach out to him, Daniel Duane. Hi, Dan. And I mean, it was, this is something like, I do a podcast, but he does a podcast. And I said, would you come on our podcast? And he did. And we had the most fun conversation. It was just the best experience ever. So, like, that was, for me, my personal and professional worlds collided. I had a great time. And it's been a really popular episode. So our members have super duper loved it too. So that was a neat one for me.
That's really cool, and the fact that you're hearing that, also there it is, right there, what you do. So podcasts are fascinating. It's what goes into them, what's behind the scenes. So what's it like doing one, and then what are some of the kind of things, maybe like behind the scenes challenges that happen that people don't know about?
For me, finding a quiet place, especially during the pandemic, got very challenging. We have personally quite a few pets and a few outdoor pets like chickens that interrupted a few broadcasts. So I had to kind of learn where, during the pandemic in my house, I could record. But as you go along, you get more comfortable with the process. It's something that, honestly, the preparation for is so much more involved, for the most part, unless I really botch something, than the actual production of the podcast. That's really where it gets fun, because you're telling a story in the sense that you're setting the stage to tell the members' story, for them to really be able to express themselves and share their work and their passion in a way that maybe they haven't before. And so helping to set the stage for that without it sounding too scripted. I always provide questions in advance, because it's a comfort thing. Most of the people I talk to haven't been on a podcast, or maybe aren't super comfortable with being interviewed. So kind of finding the balance between a conversation but also a well-prepared and well-researched podcast. I'd say that's fun but challenging. Quiet spaces, preparation, and then it's a really creative outlet. Like, anytime I always incorporate music, and anytime I get to incorporate sound effects, that's a banner day for me. That's really just super fun. It's just a fun outlet to connect with people through it.
So there's probably listeners and viewers of this that have opportunities coming forward and maybe being guests. Like, what advice do you give to a guest that's coming on about how to have the best experience during a podcast?
Oh my gosh, I think just take a deep breath, which is something that before this interview you obviously had to tell me to do. And really, it's a way to share your story. So there's no wrong way to do it. There's no wrong answer. You're connecting with people and you're sharing your work. And what's neat about our podcast is you're reaching an audience that maybe doesn't have a strong analytics or OR background. Maybe they're just really interested in learning new things. And we really try to take the work our members do and show sort of the rest of the world how important analytics and OR and how ingrained they are in our day-to-day life, that this is not something that's happening far away in some lab or in some university, that this is impacting everything day to day. I remember when I first interviewed for Informs, I came home and I was super excited, and my husband was like, what are they doing? I was like, I have no idea, but it's really cool.
Okay.
And that's what, like, anytime I go into an episode of the podcast, I really try and share that, because it is so cool, and it is something that's around us in ways that once you start to learn about it, you want to learn more. Like, oh my gosh, that's why this is done that way, and that's why they do that. And I mean, it's super cool.
So you mentioned earlier, you talked about true crime, kind of a thing you like, and then you're out running. You mentioned one podcast you listen to. By the way, true crime, if you check out Staircase, if you haven't seen that, that's quite something.
So creepy.
I know. So what else are you listening to when you're not working on Resoundingly Human?
So I have to say, I started with true crime. That was what brought me into the podcasting world. After doing this podcast, it actually has kind of shaped what I listen to, because I like learning new things. I listen, like, things in history that I didn't know. For American Scandal, where it's some, like, juicy gossip, but it's also, oh, that's why that happened that way, and this is why this has been changed. Somebody that we work with that Informs, Tim O'Brien, who actually, one of my favorite people that I've ever worked with. he helped me actually establish the podcast. He has an excellent podcast, Shaping Opinion, that really just, it takes a look at things that happened in history that kind of change how we think and how things are today. So just opportunities to learn new things. I love narrative, historical. I love to be told a story. I love to be able to invest in something. Like, I want to walk away when a podcast is done and be sad. Like, I want more episodes of this. So anything, and Alan, I'll give anything that's recommended a try. And I'll give it at least 2 episodes, and then it might not be for me, and that's okay. That's okay.
So I think we've created some FOMO for Resoundingly Human based on this conversation. So how do people find it? How do they get actively involved with it?
So the best way to learn more about the podcast is resoundinglyhuman.com. We just launched earlier this year, actually, a brand new website for the podcast. It's a great way to just kind of explore it. You can search by category, you can find related episodes. Because there are so many different topics we cover, it's a really fun way to see the kinds of content that you might be the most interested in. We also made each episode page so that not only do we have information on what we're talking about there and additional resources, but we really try to highlight the member there and give their information and their background and who they are. So we have headshots and bios and things like that. And it's also available for download literally anywhere. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher. Yeah, I mean, anywhere you want to download it, you can. And then you can always email me if you want to be on the podcast, akilgore@informs.org. You can also reach out through the website.
So my last question, and I've been asking this a lot here with a variety of people, and it's amazing answers. So if you could sit down and have a conversation with your 18-year-old self, what advice would you give?
She was a mess. I would tell her that it all gets a lot better. You learn how to do your hair, and your skin clears up, and it's really okay that what's his name dumped you on Valentine's Day or whenever it was. That there's a lot waiting for you, and just have fun, worry a lot less, and you'll find yourself, and it's okay to be a little different.
Well, it has been. Well, first of all, I just thoroughly enjoy you when I'm at the office, when we've worked together. Mm-hmm. You are a gift. You're wonderful to work with. It has been a pleasure to sit here and do this with you.
Same,
and
Brad.
We didn't
Thank
crack
you.
up. We held it together, and there you go. So thank you.
Yes, thank you for making me super comfortable. This is fun.
Okay, great.